This is a workshop on how to design a test blueprint, and in fact assessment in any educational context is very significant because it helps us evaluate the performance of our students and also to improve our teaching experience, and most importantly it provides some reliable evaluation of our students. So in this session we are not going to passively present information, but we are sharing ideas about our students' responses about their questionnaire, especially the part that's related to test designing. And perhaps this is kind of brainstorming or mutual brainstorming, and sharing ideas will help us increase our students' satisfactions for the coming semester. So as a student, we're terrified when our teacher told us that we're gonna have some kind of exam, and when they write down this word, this was very terrifying, and maybe it wasn't an exam, it was just an example. That's why you see the reactions of students in the two pictures is totally different, and it depends on the kind of stress that the word itself can cause to any learner. That's why we have again a lot of exam stress ideas and exam stress theories that have been used to explain why the students feel stressed during being examined or during setting for an exam. However, in this session we are going to elaborate on the kind of assessment and how can we make our assessment and most importantly our teaching and learning experiences more informative and stress-free. How can we and students and of course the program designers or the decision maker be on the same page without having any kind of conflict, without having any kind of behind bar decisions. So in this session we are going to cover 7 items, which are what do I mean by the OBTL, and we are going to know also what is a constructive alignment, and we are going to define assessment in a different educational context, and we are going to differentiate between assessment, measurement, evaluation, and also we are going to design some smart learning outcomes based on some taxonomies such as the Salo taxonomy or Bloom taxonomy, and we are going to differentiate and compare and contrast between two types of assessment, which is a formative assessment and the summative assessment, and we are going to finish off with building a test blueprint for our course. So we could say that we have 3 main parts in this session. Part 1 we are going to cover the objectives part, and in part 2 we are going to cover the assessment part, and then we are going to end up with having some kind of specification of doing the test blueprint. So in fact this session is about designing a blueprint, but why didn't I start out and set off with kick off the session with building or designing the test blueprint? Because the test blueprint is not very simple to be tackled without bearing in mind some other ideas which will help us to quickly take and the information presented or the information required in the test blueprint. So before coming to the point of discussing or designing the test blueprint, we need some ideas, we need some background knowledge that all of us should agree upon to do some kind of consistent test blueprint. So in part 1 we are going to design objectives, and in part 2 we are going to know what is the difference, what is assessment and what are the types of assessment and why do we need both of them and what the importance of both of them. And then we are going to go through and then we are going to take up the idea of test blueprint and the component, the time allocated for answering some exam questions, and so on. So nowadays, in order to know what is the difference between today's teaching and learning and the traditional ways of teaching and learning, we have two main ideas. We have instructivism versus constructivism. Instructivism, it's a traditional way of teaching because it is some kind of a spoon-feeding process in which the teacher takes control of all the things happening in the class. And while in constructivism, it is a learner-based. It depends on the learner to construct his own version or his own ideas of the presented information. So it's some kind of communicative learning, and instead of being passive learning. So in instructivism, the teacher is an instructor, while in constructivism, the teacher is a facilitator. It's a guide, he is a helper, and most importantly, he is a monitor. He is monitoring his students' performance and progress in acquiring the intended competences. And then when it comes to instructivism, the teacher presents all kind of information. He is the all-knowing person here in this place, while the student in the constructivism approach is conducting or construct knowledge. He is asked to look for information and to get information, and even to persuade in the idea presented in the classroom. And when it comes to the first part, again, we have the students is usually being assessed and being evaluated based on his behavior in the class. So throughout the whole course, the teacher will go through by saying, this is a good answer, this is a bad answer, you are not progressing very well, you have to do your best, and so on. This is a behaviorist, while this is based on cognitivism, because you have to know how your mind works. That's why we have different teaching style, different learning style. This person is visual, this person is tactile, and this person is touching and doing by touching and so on, and kinesthetic, or even he is audio or auditory student. He learns best by doing some kind of listening and doing a lot of other items. And also we have the content-based, while this is adaptive learning, because throughout the learning process I'm asking the student to participate. Maybe I'm going to adapt things throughout my journey to the end of the course. And also it is passive, while here he is process-based. He is asked, it's task-based, project-based, and portfolio-based, and so on. And that's why, in bearing these two ideas in mind, we need to keep in mind that our learning experience based on three main elements in order to have this very interactive class, wherein the teacher is delivering info, the students are actively responding to his questions, and even they have the chances, the freedom to participate in the presented topics, and so on and so forth. That's why we have three main items when it comes to teaching. The first item is the purpose, the second one is the content, the third one is the technique. Which of them do you think is the most important one? Which of them the most significant? Which comes first? In fact, the purpose comes first. Why the purpose comes first? Because the purpose answers two questions. The first one is, why do we have this course? Why should I learn this course? And who is learning this course? While the content answers the question of, is it why or who? No, it is a question of what. So if I am here as a student and I am badly in need of learning the content that you are going to present, so what I am going to learn. And then we have the technique, which is the how part, the technique part, how the content is being presented or will be presented to the person who is interested in this information. So in order to make some kind of balance between these three items, we need some kind of planning between them. So we need some structural objectives, we need the designing of the weight and the weightage of the evaluation of the content of the course, and we need to know or to have some kind of planned assessment. We need to have test blueprint. So in today's world, we are no longer depend on the traditional way, which is the behaviorism or even the instructivism. We are going through and towards the other part, which is the cognitivism and constructivism. And according to this constructivism, wherein the students construct his own part of the information, or he is involved in the decision making of the activities and so on, we have the OBTL approach, wherein the outcomes are driving, controlling, and directing the teaching and the learning processes. That's why we have outcomes-based teaching and learning. So according to this approach, or according to the OBTL, the concern is not so much a matter of the topic which we should teach the students, but what outcomes that our students are supposed to achieve after doing this course. That is why we have this part, which is constructive alignment. All these items should be in harmony. They should work towards one target, which is achieving some kind of performance on the part of the students. So the students, again, the outcomes we intend to learn and to align teaching and assessment to these outcomes. Therefore, learning is constructed by the activities the students carry out. It is about what they do, not what the teacher do. And how can we achieve this constructive alignment? By bearing in mind, again, keeping in mind two ideas. What is the difference between objectives and intended learning objectives or intended learning outcomes? So objectives is a very general idea, while outcomes is very specific. Let's have a look here. So here, this is an objective, this is an example for an objective, and this is an example for an ILO. So to provide an understanding, do you think this is specific or this is a general one? It's very specific, it's broad. How can we determine that our students succeed in this part? We don't know. We can't even measure this. And then we have the ILOs to describe the basic principles of X and Y, maybe translation, maybe even of knowledge, and so on. While here we have to develop analytical understanding of something. So to develop analytic understanding, how can we even evaluate this? To what extent could I say my student succeeded and I am a wonderful teacher? I cannot do that, right? So what I'm asking you to do now, you have 2 minutes, and in groups of 4, write 3 objectives of any course you are or you are going to teach next semester. Remember, the most active group will have a present. I'll have a gift by the end of this workshop. I don't know what is it, but they will have a gift. So, how can we design or writing on intended learning outcomes? First, you have to keep in mind 3 things. Number 1, you have to keep in mind the topic that you are going to deliver to the students and the kind of understanding that you need your students to reach or to come up to. And then you have to keep in mind your students, your course takers, needs, level, expectations, and so on and so forth, and weaknesses, of course. So we have, I guess, when it comes to the first part, we know the topics depend on the kind of courses that you are delivering, because the topics or the content of a translation course is totally different or are totally different from that of a morphology or semantics or even a literature course. So we have a level of understanding, and we have different, what do we mean by the levels of understanding? Level of understanding, we have, according to Beggs to 2014, we have 5 levels of understanding. The 5 levels of understanding, the 5 levels of understanding, we have pre-structural, wherein the students has 0 information about the topic. For example, if you ask your students any question about the content of the course before delivering any information related to the course, they might have the idea or they might not. For example, if I asked my students who are enrolling to have a course about comparative linguistics, what is the difference between the school, what is the difference between ideology and, for example, discourse analysis. So again, here we might have some 0 response here because you have 0 information about this topic. And then we have the unistructural, and uni is a morphological prefix meaning one, so it's a uni, it means just to do one thing. And then we have multi-structural, and multi, it means many separate things. And then we have relational, so you are going to find out the relation between the introduced items. And then we have expanded abstract, and this is the highest level of understanding. So I am going to present information, and based on all of this, they will be asked to do some kind of project wherein they will apply so and so and so. So this figure will present our ideas or level of information very clearly. We have here at the first part, the student fails to provide some kind of input here, while here we ask him to provide one information, just like identify or do simple procedure. And here we have many unrelated information. Here we don't ask him to do any kind of information or any kind of related information here. So we're asking him to enumerate. We're asking him to enumerate, to give examples, to describe, to list, to compare, to contrast, to outline even, and to mention, recall, and so on. And while here we are not only asking him to mention, but we are asking him to apply, to relate, to analyze, to explain causes and reasons, effects and results, and so on, compare and contrast. While here, we are not only asking him to find the relationship between these different items, but we are asking him to use this kind of knowledge to come up with new ideas. So we're asking him to theorize, or to generalize, or to hypothesize, or even to reflect on this. So here, again, you have to keep in mind in the first part, the first half of this figure, we have quantitative phase. Our main focus will be on delivering much more information to the students, while in the second part we are focusing on the quality of the information. How can you use this information to come up with new ideas, or how can you synchronize and integrate this kind of information to come up with new ideas. So, or you can use this taxonomy with which we are very familiar, because we have remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and grading. So your objectives must have 3 main items. They must be student-centered, because you ask your student to perform some kind of action or to perform some kind of competence that they will be have by the end of this course. And also they will be, or they must be, performance centered, because again, students can perform something after you're doing. They will be able to write, they will be able to maintain, they will be able to translate, and so on. And then we have content centered. Again, you should have content because this will have the students will have a very clear vision about the application of this content to a new context, or they will be able to know the information in a context. So again, they will focus on the change in the student's performance. Learning target should describe the student's performance. It's not unusual for some teacher guide, curriculum, and so on to contain statements that don't focus on the students. And then performance, because here we need to have some kind of observable activity. This can be accomplished by the statement, and then they must be content oriented, because the learning objectives, the learning target, should also indicate the content to which the performance is to apply. And what are the main component of a SMART objectives? Let's have a look at this. By the end of the session, the student will write a 3-paragraph essay on a cultural event, maybe a wedding, or maybe a birthday party in Cairo, for example. So here we have a condition. What is a condition? Which is, again, all of this, it's a cultural event. And then we have an action verb, where the action verb is write. And then we have an object to write what? To write a 3-paragraph essay. And then we have a context, and this context, again, it's writing on a cultural event. And then we have a measurement. How can we measure the success of the students in accomplishing this task? By finding out, or by grading his 3-paragraph essay. So here we'll find out that this is a very smart objectives. Why is it very smart? Because it is as specific, smart. It's a measurable. We can measure to what extent our students succeeded to accomplish the assigned task. And achievable, again, we can achieve this because it's a 3 something. And realistic, this is a realistic because we didn't ask him to write to write a book, for example. Or, and most importantly, it's a time bound by the end of this lesson. So this is an example for a SMART objective. Explain the meaning of the term called. It's too specific, and your SMART objective should be not too broad and not too specific, not too general and not too specific. Remember, it must be specific, not too specific. And we have here explain the meaning of a key whether. So now you have 2 minutes to choose any course you are assigned to teach next semester, and write 3 ILO their force. And we are going to have a break. So thank you so much, and see you after 10 minutes.